We throw on what I hope to be the last welds on this frame, and then lastly, from what seemed like an eternity leading up to the point where I can finally throw down some paint. I also ran into a strange issue, but we'll get into that later. We have a lot to accomplish, so let's go. As you guys know, I am very eager to start painting on this frame, but there are two little tabs that I need to weld on before I can start painting. Hopefully this is the last of the welding because I really don't want to have to start welding after I'm done painting. I know I told you guys this way back in the first or second episode of this build series that the main point of this project was so that I could dip my feet into welding. Of course, I could have just purchased a battery that is much smaller and able to fit inside of the frame without having to do any kind of modifications, especially not welding. I do have some larger projects that I will need to be able to weld on, but I didn't want to start welding with those because they are much more intimidating. And little did I know that there was going to be so much welding on this frame. I really just thought it was going to be maybe a few small pieces that I had to add, but it turned out to be a whole lot of welding, which is actually a good thing. And even though I'm still an absolute beginner who completely sucks at welding, I still was able to make something, and I'm really happy about that. And finally, after a long time coming with all the progression up to this point, we can finally start painting. To me, this is a huge milestone in the project because although it doesn't demark that it is the end of the project, it does mean that we are getting dangerously close to finally completing it. As for the design, you saw how many grays I had laid out on the table. I did really enjoy the hex camo pattern that I had previously on this bike, but I did want to switch it up at least a little bit, and right now, for whatever reason, I am just really into grays. I did notice that for myself, I am into certain color palettes and patterns, and I'll go through cycles where I just want to see that on everything that I own, and then later I'll either progress with that or change it up completely and then just be into a new thing. So for right now, it's this gray pattern camo, and I just really love it. For the less than 1% of you that have actually seen my CHAPPiE Moose build series video, you will know exactly the direction that I'm trying to go with this build in terms of paint scheme and patterns. With these stencils, I don't really have a pre-planned way of how I'm going to paint it. I just kind of go with the flow and hopefully it comes out okay. Sometimes I end up going a little too far and then having to repaint it more until I get back to a place where I actually like it again. I do really enjoy painting like this, and I would say the hardest part is just finding that balance of not enough or too much, and then sometimes you can overshoot it and then try to work your way back, and I've definitely done that more than a few times. When I originally painted this frame, I only used the larger stencil, but this time I'm mixing it up a little bit and using the smaller hex pattern as well as the larger one, and I'm also going to be adding some more elements on top of these. While I keep painting, I do want to tell you guys about the past weekend and how this video turned out to be one of the more disappointing ones that I have made. The most frustrating part of this build so far doesn't even have anything to do with the build itself or the bike. It has to do with supply chains. As you guys know from the last video, I really wanted to start painting this frame last week, but there were so many little things that I needed to tie up, and then it almost started raining, and I just figured I'll just get to it next weekend. I'll have the entire weekend to go and I will just paint everything and it's gonna be great. But unfortunately, it didn't pan out that way. One of the critical colors that I needed for spraying was this flat dark gray primer, and I was basically going to be painting every single part in this color as the base coat. I had thought that I had multiple cans of this color, but as it turned out, I ran out within maybe a half an hour on Saturday, so just when I was starting to paint, I ran out of it. I had absolutely zero thoughts in my mind that this was going to pose any sort of a problem because this is a very common paint and it is carried at just about every single local hardware store. I completely wasted wasted all day Saturday just trying to find one can of paint. I drove to and from across my entire city to 6 different hardware stores. Of course, they all said they had them in stock online, and not just 1 or 2 pieces. Some of them said they had 20, 30 pieces, but I would drive and get there and then they would have none on the shelves, none in overstock. The employees couldn't find them, they were just gone. So one day was completely gone that I had dedicated to painting and getting a lot more progress on this build, but if I don't have the paint, then I can't paint. But I am incredibly stubborn and I don't give up very easily, so the next day I find some online at Ace and I can actually purchase it online for pickup. So I figured at least I'd have a couple hours painting on Sunday and I'll try to get as much done as possible, but then I get the email that I can pick up my order because it's ready. So I show up there and they say, "Oh, did we call you?" I said, "No, I didn't get a call, but I did get this email saying my order is ready for pickup." And he said, "Well, we usually call the customer before, but it's okay." And then he's like, "Oh, you're only ordering some spray paint, so why don't you go check our spray paint? We probably have it." But at this point, as you can imagine, I am very skeptical that anyone has this paint within a 1,000-mile radius of where I am. So I find where that paint can would be, except that rack is empty just like all the other hardware stores that I've been to. The employee goes on to try and explain how this could have happened, but in my eyes, don't email the customer that you have the thing ready for pickup if you don't have that thing at all. So on Sunday, I did try to get as much painting as I possibly could done without that color. I was finally able to source some of this online, although it does have to be shipped to me, so I'm really hoping it's going to show up this week so I can finish painting this weekend, and if not, then I'm gonna have to show you guys something else that I'm working on. Now, normally these things don't really bother me all that much because I am very patient and I also do like to take my time on my builds. But the thing that is different now is I am trying to consistently give you guys a new video every single week, and that can pose some problems. Of course, I am taking responsibility because I should have done an inventory check before starting painting, but I have never run into this issue before. There's always at least one hardware store where I can get more paint that I need. Although I did try my best, there are going to be some times where things are just out of my hands and I don't have control over the outcome, and I do have to just work around that. That's why this video is a bit of a disappointment to me, because I really was hoping I was going to be much further along in the painting process, but I'm hoping that next week I can have it all completely finished. Anyway, with that explanation of where things are at with the paint job, I am really happy with how this is coming out. These tiger stripes are a more recent addition to this hex camo paint job pattern that I've been putting on a lot of things, and I think it just adds another layer to the craziness that's going on. I don't know how well this would work if my color choice was a lot more vibrant or colorful at all. I think it's easier to get away with this kind of chaotic and crazy patterning because of how subdued the rest of the color palette is. I do have quite a few projects coming up that will require more paint jobs, and I am looking for more inspiration. I can get inspiration from just about anything, but I have been so busy lately that I haven't had a lot of time to just browse art or watch movies or do any of the other things that kind of naturally just bring me some inspiration. If you guys know of any resources that you personally use that inspire your creativity, let me know and I'll definitely check them out. Even though you're not really going to see a lot of this top frame because it is going to be covered in acrylic panels, I did want to paint it out fully just for solidarity. You can also see from the contrast between the two pieces that adding that matte clear finish just brings out so much more depth in the parts. It was very hot out this day and the tape didn't want to stick to any of the heated parts, but I mostly just used my hand to hold everything down and just blast it as quickly as I could. These two parts are pretty much completed at this point. The only thing I need to do last is the main part of the frame and also the kickstand, but I need more paint, so those are going to have to wait. Because I'm still waiting on paint, I did want to try and address some other problems, and that is this swing arm bolt. The one that's in there does fit a lot better than it did when I first started, but I want this thing to be much tighter. I figured with enough sanding I could get it to fit in the other bearings, but it's going to take a very long time, and I figured I might as well just buy the appropriate size bolt. So I will be going to the hardware store again tomorrow and hopefully finding the appropriate bolt, but if my paint can't come in this week, then I will be showing you guys another project I'm working on, and here is a preview. So I did recently purchase a 3D printer, and this is going to open up a ton of options for things including e-bikes, computers, and all kinds of other stuff. I think you can kind of get the picture of what this part that I have designed is and where it might go, but more on that in a future video. So hopefully the paint comes in this week so I can finish it this weekend, but if not, then I'll have something else to show you. But here are the parts that I have painted so far, and I'm really happy with how they came out. I think this hex camo pattern definitely complements the overall design of this frame because it already looks kind of alien or insect-like, and especially all the different alterations and mods I have added to it just takes that concept and makes it even more over the top. But I am curious on what you guys think of the paint job so far. Is it crazy? Is it cool? Would you do something differently? Would you have done a solid color maybe? Let me know in the comments. I am curious. And as always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. So while my fingers are crossed that the paint comes in this week and I am able to make more progress on that, if not, I'll just show you guys something else I'm working on and then we'll pick back up in the episode after that. So stay tuned, thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.